All right, AJ, 5 minutes on the clock. Today, let's talk about cadence customization. It's something that every SDR should be doing, especially as they've been in the role for a few months, but it's not something that you need to do the same for every prospect in your pipeline, right? So
I would say.
Interesting. So I'd love to hear your take on sort of making that decision. How do you customize your cadence differently for different targets and different prospects and different tiers?
So I think first of all, before any of this starts, foundationally, you need to have a cadence of some kind. And it's usually rooted in some type of sales math or conversion metrics or whatever. Like somebody put the work into developing a 14, 18, 20 step, whatever it is, cadence that works most of the time, right? Like they figured out, some manager years ago figured out that your message through 20 different touch points has a high chance of yielding some type of reply. And that's something you need to keep in the back of your head as an SDR. Like I'm a Boston Celtics fan, so it hurts for me to say this, but you have to trust the process more often than not, because the process eventually, in most cases, will yield results. In some cases, though, you have to recognize that the process in place doesn't work for that particular prospect. You alluded to it, but for example, if I have a target account, we've said this on different podcasts, you want to make sure that you're exerting the most effort on the accounts that move the needle the most. So if this is an account that's a whale and my AE really wants to get into this account, and we've spent a good amount of time strategizing who to talk with and how to get in front of these people, I'm extending the cadence on that account. I'm pulling in more decision makers than normal. I'm trying out different types of content. Maybe it goes from 14 to 30 steps over a longer period of time because I really care about it and I want to get in front of them. Versus, let's say marketing gives me a list of old webinar registrants and the quality is suspect and I don't necessarily think I want to spend a ton of time on mapping out these accounts. My regular 14-step cadence, bread and butter. I know that's going to work most of the time. So it's about using your brain and figuring out when you want to exert more effort because the results theoretically will be better versus taking a suspect level account and kind of going through the basic cadence that you've already developed that should work most of the time.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And it's a good way to walk that line between the quality outreach you want and the quantities or the volume that you need to get. Another thing that I think is important when it comes to changing your cadence structure is just like a lot of things, just like email templates, call scripts, you're going to want to experiment.
Oh, yeah.
And base it off of data you have. That doesn't mean, oh, like nobody picked up the phone for me this week. Let's just like drop the amount of calls we want to make in this cadence in half. Like it doesn't work that way. So I think you pointed out it a little bit, but it is really important to be able to talk with your team, with your manager, and make sure you're drawing from the right set of data, the right amount of data to be able to make an informed decision that isn't just like oh, well, this week I'm going to try reaching out on LinkedIn first, and next week I'm going to try emailing them first, and sort of the whimsical, I don't know if that's the right word,
ad hoc maybe.
Yeah, I'll go with whimsical though. I like it more. But that kind of experimentation versus, very much more metrics driven, purposeful, like meaning behind the decision you make type of.
Yeah, and that's not to say, like to your point, SDRs, in my opinion, should have some creative license around this. They know more than anybody else what works, how people respond to their messaging, at what touch point makes they get the most replies. Like they're in the weeds on a day-to-day basis. So if you want to experiment, but just don't do it behind a curtain. You have to be open and honest with your manager, the rest of your team, to make sure that you're, like you said, experimenting for the right reasons. A good example of that is something that we did internally at Demand Drive many, many years ago when we first started onboarding sales automation software. There was, and this is a good way for you to change up your cadence on a daily basis, there were opportunities for you to understand when you emailed someone when they opened their email. And that notification of someone opening their email was a good indicator to you that like, hey, this person's probably at their desk right now next to their phone. Don't just hope they get back to you. Change your cadence up, pick up the phone right now and call them. Add in an extra touch point. And we started doing that on our teams internally here, and response rates went through the roof comparatively because our theory was right. You're catching people as they're at their desk. So technically the cadence has been disrupted, but that extra touch point has that level of ingenuity from an SDR who used their brain to figure that out. And we were able to start building data behind it so that now in all of our programs moving forward, it's a recommended thing for our clients to look at. So just an example of being able to do that.
Perfect, exactly. I know we're out of time. Last thing I want to say, once you've already touched base with someone, if they're in the nurture cadence, that can be much more geared to the specific person. If they called you, if you had a conversation on the phone and said, now's not a good time, make sure you're calling them a lot. If they shot you an email, make sure it's more email follow-up. So I know it's sort of an aside, but it is important to note that like the feedback you get from individual prospects will help you with their individual cadence. So it's not all just templated.
Yeah, it kind of like trumps the original cadence that you have in the first place. I like that. It's a good point.
Yeah.
All right, AJ, 15 seconds. Tell everybody about opt-in.
Opt-in, quick 5-ish minute videos, actionable sales development tips, minimal fluff. You can find us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on our Instagram, and on the website, demanddrive.com. You gotta know when to hold them.
Know when to fold them.
Know when to walk away. All right, I'm done. I don't know any of the other words to
No, that was right. Know when to walk away, know when to run.
So see, that's it.
That's all I know. Something about your dollars.
You got to count your blessings. Dang it, I do know more words.